Well, shalom, shalom, and welcome to this would be night 4? Night 4 of Sukkot already. It's going by fast. But here we are again in the Sukkah. Obviously this morning counted as night 3 because we were still in the day of the third evening, if that makes sense. I know that didn't really make much sense. Anyways, so this is the beginning of the 4th day of Sukkot. And we have another guest speaker tonight, and it is Scott. Woo-hoo.
Thank you. Let's pull up my technology. I did have one thing I need to do. I found if I have my gloves on and I turn the screen around to show you guys, I don't change things that I don't want to.
Can you still scroll with the gloves on?
Stylus.
Okay, there we go.
Should have given Jordan one of these the other day. Shouldn't have had the freezing hands. All right. So this one I learned last night or the night before that this sermon's actually 8 years old. Because I looked at the pictures to bring it up, and that's when I had the picture taken of where I got the sermon from. It's called Lessons from a Rock, and it's from it's a parable, of course, and which is interesting, the 8 now, because the 8 is the number I left off on last time. So that's interesting. So let's see. So much like the subject of this message, the sermon was also buried until Jordan and I were putting a fence in, and we were digging holes for the fence posts, and I said, this is like the sermon that I had, and I told Jordan I hadn't preached anything about it yet, and she's like, well, I guess you know what you're preaching for Sukkot this year. And so I dug up the notes that I had, which was just like barely an overview of what it was. So I had to at least a couple weeks here to flesh it all out. So that was good. So it took a couple weeks to flesh it all out, and that's where we are today. And like I said, I take a couple weeks. This one took a couple weeks to put all the message together, and I put it down. So and I don't like try to recall everything. I write it all down. So I like a kind of need a teleprompter, like some other vice presidents at the time. I can't talk without the teleprompter in front of me. I do stray a little bit, and I probably make more sense than she does. So, it was interesting that Jordan brought up this one for me because her message was also a parable that came from a life lesson that she had. So so for years there was this rock that was buried in my driveway. It was unseen. I never even thought about it. Didn't know it was there. But through the normal seasons of life, winter, spring, summer, and fall, my rock was now becoming exposed. And just in case you didn't know it, you weren't aware of it, it's we grow rocks here in New England.
Yes.
I know that sounds odd to the millions of people listening around the world, but when you have a rock in the ground, when the ground freezes in the wintertime, the ice gets underneath the rock, and then the rock is held up by the ice in the springtime. When it thaws out, it's thawing out from the top down, so it still has that like pedestal in the bottom that holds the rock up. So you'll see that there's a gap around the rock that sometimes you'll have like a half-inch gap around the rock, and then when the spring rains and everything come, that all fills in with dirt and everything. And then when it's finally completely thawed out, it's just a little bit taller. So year after year after year, the thing's growing up out of your yard. And that's why, let me find where I was here. That's why when you, like, when this happens every year, if you take note of it, like, you'll see a rock, just keep an eye on it, and you'll notice, like, every year it gets a little bigger and a little bigger. And a really good way to figure that one out is once you're mowing your lawn, all of a sudden you whack into a rock, and you're like, I didn't hit that last year. So it must have been just that little bit that was almost there. So now you've got a rock in your yard that's a problem. So they grow up just through the normal passing of time, and as the seasons go, they just get bigger. It just happens. So, and just like some of those rocks in your yard are becoming an issue, the rock in my driveway was now becoming an issue. This rock was affecting more than areas in it was affecting more areas than just my driveway. It was affecting my car, to be exact. It had risen up so high out of the driveway that I'd have to drive down just right so that it didn't interfere with my car. So before anything else happened to my car, I decided that this rock had to go. So while I was digging and picking and levering with my good buddy Lee, leverage, and sweating, because this was in August that I did this, God showed me some things that I'm going to share with you tonight here. So, can God really show you something important while you're digging a rock out of your driveway? Of course He can. In the beginning, this is supposed to be on view only. So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Oh, that's Genesis 1:1. We all know that one. Psalms 19, verse 1. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim His handiwork. Well, if the skies can proclaim His handiwork, so can the ground and the rocks. And then Romans chapter 1, verse 20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. And He made all the rocks, so He's helping me out. So as I'm digging the rock out, He's teaching me things with what He's created, so that no people are without excuse. He will teach you things from His creation. Anybody could look around and see all that has been made and know that without a doubt that there is a God. Anybody that believes all this fine balance of everything, and even the human body, that all this happened by accident, they're on a different level. They're just denying, just so they know they don't have anything to answer to. And that same God will teach you lessons when you least expect it, like when you're digging a rock out of your driveway. And just like not all rocks that start growing up out of the ground are an issue. For instance, if a rock comes up in the middle of the woods, it doesn't make any difference, That's, unless the deer start tripping over it or something, maybe it's an issue to them, but it's in their driveway. So just like not all rocks that pop up out of the ground are an issue, not all fears or problems or concerns in your life are an issue. Like if you had, there's a big word for you, arachibutyrophobia, it's the fear of getting peanut butter stuck to the roof of your mouth. It's a real fear. So I'm pretty sure that you could live a normal life if you had this rock grow up out of your driveway. Because all you got to do is not eat peanut butter and you're done, unless you're fearful that somebody's going to come up and stick peanut butter in your mouth when you're not expecting it or something. You can probably have a pretty normal life with this phobia. So, like that, many issues of life aren't a big deal until they start getting in the way, like my rock. So what did I learn from my rock? Obviously, this is a parable. And like Jordan's mountain, Mount Isolation. Is that the trail? It's got to be just the trail, right? The mountain's called Isolation. I thought it was the path name. Okay, so just like any of the parable, it's good to first establish what are the parts of the parable and what do they mean. So identifying who the characters in the parable are. So what do the rock, the driveway, and the car represent in the parable? Any guesses? I kind of gave away already. The rock is obviously a problem. So the driveway is you or me. In this parable, it's me. The car is life. And the rock, well, it's an issue, a challenge, a problem, something that gets in the way of regular everyday life. Some problems I don't like when I had agoraphobia and couldn't leave my house because of fears that I had. But other problems I rather enjoy. When I used to work at TCI as a welder, quite often through a normal work week, people come up to me and be like, "Scotty, we got a problem." My response a lot of times was, "No problem." So one time my boss came up to me. He comes rushing up, my boss Tom. He comes rushing up to me, "Scotty, come on, we got a problem out in shipping." So I go out into shipping, and there's chaos. We would get like a 35-gallon cardboard drum of Teflon. Teflon is a liquid Teflon, and it looks like milk or Elmer's glue. Not quite as thick as Elmer's glue, not quite as thin as milk. So it's somewhere in the middle. It makes like a really gooey mess when it gets on the floor. So I go out in shipping, everybody's out there. Somebody had skewered with the fork truck when they were trying to unload the pallet, and they poked a hole in the drum. And if I remember correctly, they were like $5,000 for a drum of Teflon, which is just leaking all over the floor, making a huge mess for everybody to clean up. A very slippery mess, even after it's cleaned up. You've coated concrete with Teflon. So you could just slide right through that whole area for a couple weeks after that had happened. Because even when you scrape it and you do all kind of stuff, it doesn't come up. It just fills in all the little holes. And so I go out there, and we had acquired, rehired people that were of a, they used to run in Saint-Gobain, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. And we had acquired a bunch of their managers because they didn't like the big corporate thing anymore. They just became a number to the giant company. And so all these big managers have been out there, and those guys had like long careers in this major company. So they've seen everything. We got Mike, a really good mechanical engineer, draw you up an entire machine and you put it together like he drew it, and it works. There's no reworking in it. We had Ed, who was the plant manager of Saint-Gobain, and multiple $1 billion and stuff that he would produce. He's there. My boss, who had been a farmer and a lumberjack, and he worked for Polaroid for a while, so he's done all kinds of different stuff. There's Fran, who was actually the chemical engineer for Saint-Gobain, and he had a PhD as far as I had heard. And then you got all the managers from the building, all the people from shipping are there, and everybody's got this drum up in the air because they had taken it with the fork truck. They picked it up. I think they wrapped some shrink wrap around it trying to get it to stop. That didn't help. It just kept pouring out all over the place. Somebody was sitting up on top of the pallet with, would take like a gallon jug and cut the top off and make a scoop with it. And so they're doing that, and I don't know where they were putting, like the container they were putting it into. And so all this is going on, and people are running over, all the big bosses are yelling different stuff. And then you got me. And I come walking up, and I'm looking at the situation, and they had enough time to make a big mess, probably like as wide as this. There was already a pool that was on the ground. And I walked up, and I'm looking at what's going on, And in 30 seconds, I started yelling, "Where's the cover? Who's got the cover to the drum?" And so there's people like look around, like, "Where's the cover? Where's the cover?" Like, put the cover back on it and tip it over. Put the hole on top. I had the least education of anybody there at that time, because of what I said before, the having agoraphobia. I had to leave school. I only have an 8th grade education. Of course, I learned more after that, but what they didn't have, PhD guy included, I have the one inside of me who has the answers to every problem, and years behind me of yielding anything like my thoughts to him. I just look at something, he tells me how to fix it, and I do it. I don't even realize that I'm yielding what I'm doing to him. So at that moment, all those people with all their experience and all their, all the degrees and everything that they have, Joey 8th grade comes up and says, "Put the cover back on and tip it over, because it can't leak if the hole's on the top." So even the guy who, Fran, who has the PhD, he was like, "Whoever thought of that? That was really good thinking." His favorite saying was "good man." So it's like, yeah, good man. So that was one of my prouder moments. One of my lifetime prouder moments. Like, I walked up and like, well, of course, it can't leak if the hole's in the top. Like if I take my bottle, it's gonna leak this way. But if I put it like this, even if the cap's off, it doesn't leak. It was obvious to me, but not to anybody there, and they had been there for long enough. So that was an interesting one. So that they said, "We got a problem." I'm like, "No problem. I have the answer giver." So that was one of my prouder moments. That which led me to another proud moment, which is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but it has 2 good morals to the story in it. So I'll tell that one too. There was a guy that we used to work with us, and he was a bodybuilder. He was a big guy. He could take a can of soda and put it on top of his pec. His chest went out a long way before it started to curl over. He was massive. And so he could just sit a drink on his chest. And because he was there, and the bodybuilders guys, like, they found whatever reason to work out. And so he got a bunch of the other guys around working out and doing like push-ups all the time and stuff. And that was fun, watching the older guys getting into doing push-ups. So we had this one exercise that we'd do that he started with, and you have a metal rod that had a rope on it, and then you put like a bunch of weight on the bottom. I think we had like 12 pounds on the bottom, and you'd crank it, and you'd crank the weight up the string, and then you let it down, and you crank it back up. And one day he was doing it, and I walked over, and he got the new record. He's like, 17, beat that. So the rope was too long. We used to do it out here, but that's just to see how long your shoulders can hold the weight up. So we went to this way, which is the forearm workout. And so it was too long. It would hit the ground first. So to be even with him, I stood on the corner of the picnic table so that it would go down further than my feet. And I started cranking and cranking. I think I got up to about 25 or 30. And he and Rich that were standing there with me, I'm like, they walked away. And I'm still going. A couple minutes later, they came back. And they're like, "He's still going." Curtis walks up. And he's like, "He's doing it slow, too." Which is more of a burn if you know about working out. I'm just cranking away. He walks up to me. He's like, "Give me that." He took it from me. When he took it from me, I was on 58. The 2 good morals of the story: never be intimidated by the big guy. And never, ever underestimate the little guy. Even if the little guy is you. Back to the rock story. So now that rock had become a big problem in my driveway, and this thing had to go. So now as I say these, you got to remember, whether I correct it or not, or as I'm going through, the problem is the rock. So in your life, if you get a problem, it's your rock. And the car is life, and then the driveway is you. So you got to get your rocks out of your driveway so it doesn't affect your car. So the first thing I did was I gathered up my shovel and my pick, which are the tools it's going to take to remove the rock from the driveway. That would be like having like books and videos and teachings and, of course, scriptures. So those would be your tools to get your problem out of your driveway. And then, I got all those, and then I started digging. And just like it's going to happen when you guys start removing the problems from your driveway, rocks from your driveway, this thing was a whole lot bigger than I intended it to be. So that meant, so I'm like, okay, I don't know how many of you, well, I didn't want to dig like this giant crater in my driveway. So if any of you have much experience with a shovel, it's really not that good going that way, because you can only go so far and then the dirt just falls off because you're not have any angle to keep it scooped up. So that meant I need more tools. So just like when you start getting into something, you find that your issue is a little bit bigger than your books or videos that you got, you're going to need some more help. So when you start to remove a problem from your life, that may happen. So that you may find that you may need some counseling from somebody who's been through this before, somebody who's already had to remove that problem from their life. However, the tools that they found to do it, somewhere there was an original person that found out how to remove that problem from their life. But just find somebody who can counsel you. So that's you getting like the more tools that you need for the life problem, not the rock problem. So I needed more tools so that I could go deeper. It doesn't want to stay on view only. I don't want to accidentally edit something while I'm doing this. So, like Jordan said about isolation, it's not good to be alone. So if you're trying to solve this problem by yourself, it may not be the best thing. Many times the best tools you have to remove a problem from your life is a true friend. Somebody who will definitely be honest with you. So if you have a friend and they're not willing to tell you, you really shouldn't eat that burger again. So they may not be the one you need to be you may need a different tool for that job. If someone's like, I know it's been hard, let's go out to Five Guys. That's probably not the right weight loss coach. It's a good cheat day. Ruin it all in one visit, So, like she was saying also with the being alone, in this season that we're in now and talking about society, true friends could be really hard to find. You may have somebody who's just an online friend, and it's like, well, they're not going to help me when I want to raid the Doritos or something like that. So it's different with this world because true friends are definitely hard to find. So I've a folk musician that I like to listen to. He's really good guitar stuff, and the music he plays, I don't listen to it around Sherry because she thinks it's like hillbilly music, which some of his stuff sounds like hillbilly music, but he's got a song called True Friends, and in it there's a line that says, true friends are hard to find, and to have one, you have to be one and always be around. So are you being a true friend? Somebody needs your help and you're not being around because you're busy doing your own thing? Something to think about. So here's where some of the interesting parallels start happening in parallels in the parable. As you're digging out a rock, so often you want to take something, every so often you want to take something heavy and just give it a whack to see if it's, like when I first got up to that rock, I could have hit it with whatever I had. I think I hit it with a really big sledgehammer that I have, and it didn't even vibrate. So when things don't shake at all, it's really held in there really well. When I found out, I got pictures of it that you'll see, this thing was big. And so every so often you just give it a good whack with something heavy. So that would be like if you're trying to deal with an issue, not if you're having a problem like with the weight challenge. You're not going to go to Five Guys and see if you could just sit down there for a while. Don't. As John Hagee, he said, you don't walk up to an atomic bomb and hit it on the nose with a ball-peen hammer. That would be around that type of, you don't want to do that. But when I was overcoming anxiety, I think things are getting better. I would take a drive that would push my boundaries. Something heavy to give it a whack to see how free this issue is becoming. So, maybe if you're having trouble dealing with certain types of people, go hang out with those people. See if they're still bugging you as much as they used to. So what I found as I kept digging, that this rock wasn't alone also. The rock, it was actually a handful of medium-sized rocks and then a whole bunch of little rocks that were all around it. So first I had to get rid of all the little rocks and then the medium rocks, and that would fully expose the big rocks, or the one big rock. The little rocks are easy. Little problems, just could reach in there and grab them and throw them out. And that may be all that you have to do, is just get some of your stuff and throw it away. Maybe it's all these little things you got hanging around that's keeping you where you're at. So just get rid of them, just throw them away. So then the medium rocks were even more difficult because they were down shoulder depth into this hole. They're too big to get a grip on with one hand. So a lot of times you get down there and it's well, I can handle the weight, but I can't, there's no grip on this thing. So problems in your life, they're medium problems. You can see them, you can touch them, but you can't get a grip on them enough to get rid of them. They're there. It's obvious, I really should take care of this. I can touch it. I know exactly what sets me off. I know who gives me that mood, and nope. But you can't grab onto it to throw it out. So, for those, you could see them, but I couldn't actually, at first you couldn't get a grip on it because, like I said, the shovel isn't really good for getting rid of the dirt down there. So what I did, make sure I'm not out of my line here. I had to get special tools to bring them up to the surface before I could get both hands around them. So they got to be brought up. I think I'd use rope or something, somehow get a loop around it, or use something with a hook, and I got down in there and was able to pull it up to the surface enough. Once it's on the surface, then I could get both hands around it, then I could get the little rock out of my driveway. Remember, problems in your life are in you. So the medium rocks took special tools to get out, but also when the trick I learned when I was trying to get the medium rocks exposed was that because I couldn't really get enough of a shovel down there to get them exposed. So what I did, I grabbed my garden hose and I grabbed some high pressure water and I sprayed them, and it took all the dirt away from them so I could see where the edges of all the rocks were. And then the medium rocks were exposed where I could take the special tools that I had to hook them, and then I could get them up and then get them out of the driveway. So it's multi-step processes for all these things, which you'll find dealing with problems in your life is going to be like. It's not going to be simple to just get rid of all these problems that have been issues in your life. So I start spraying them. It seems like I've somehow deleted my pictures. I'll show you the pictures afterwards. I deleted the pictures on a separate computer, and obviously it did it to the file. So, now we're coming into the home stretch. The little problems are gone. The medium problems are gone. And now you have the big problem, which is now fully exposed and just waiting to be removed from your life. So how do you get rid of it? I know where this picture was. What I had to do, and what you may have to do. Come on, here we go. I needed an expedition to get the big rock out. You may need to go on an expedition to get problems out of your life. So it moved on me. So sometimes like an expedition would be like a getaway or a conference, or maybe your expedition, like Jordan said, is just the right type of isolation, solitude. Now that your heart should be in the right place because all your small and medium rocks have been removed from your driveway, now all you have to do is get in, like I had to do, or go on your expedition. I put a ratchet strap around this big rock, and so you have, go on your expedition, you got a good hold on this problem, and then use your expedition to remove the problem from your driveway. Let me get you a picture of that one. So there's the truck with the rock strapped to it. Oh. It read it through my glove. I think it's when I push the buttons on the side it does that. There we go. Okay. So now I've got the truck strapped to the rock, and I've used the expedition to drag this thing up out of the driveway. And like I said, it was big. I'd like to, I think I might have done a little weight calculation way back to see, like a rock this big, how heavy is this thing? And so by itself, there's my rock and to the shovel. So it was, it's big. But that wasn't what made it difficult to get out. Come on. Stylus is not cooperating. This is what made it difficult to get out. Those are all the rocks that were holding it in place. So it is just loaded with all these rocks. I barely got started and I pulled a rock out like side. Yeah, it was just as I started going through the driveway, there was a rock this big. So once I got through that, then things got easier. So then you get to put the horsepower of the expedition to it and get that rock out of your driveway. Get everything clean, getting all the little rocks out of the way. Then you'll have, your heart will be in the right place and you'll be in the right condition to get rid of the big problems in your life. That one thing that's holding you back. That one big... Because, when the rock was coming up out of the driveway, it was only about that high out of the driveway. But the parallel for this one was interesting because I didn't see it. If I just drove my life, how would you put it? If I just drove into the driveway and I wasn't paying attention, that rock would affect my driveway. That problem would affect my life. And then, so every time I came into the driveway, I would have to adjust my life a little bit so that problem didn't affect my life. So it's the same thing with, probably all of us here. There's something in our life that we're doing every time we hit that spot, we got to make a little adjustment to make sure that problem doesn't show up and affect our lives. So why we do all this in the season of Sukkot is to remember that everything is temporary. That's what all this is for. It's all temporary. This life is temporary. There's actually a fitting quote, and I wouldn't have even known about it, but I listened to a AM radio guy that does local news and politics stuff, and he starts his show off with a quote, and I saw where it was, and the quote's from a very famous movie from 1986, and it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And in it, he says, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. So let's not let problems, fears, challenges, issues that we have, rocks in our driveways, stop us from moving forward in this time. And that, when the Holy Spirit had me end with that, was like, hey, I could do a song like Tiffany did at the end of hers. And then, which was funny because Sherry's like, I was going to do that before I heard her do that. So there must be something going around. So, yeah, Tiffany started the ball rolling. Well, let's say Holy Spirit did, and then she was the first one to show it. So, yeah, so that hope that helped. It was interesting, like all the little parallel things that happened from a rock in the driveway. So I called it lessons from a rock. What's funny, because if you're trying to speak, like I don't type as quick as I talk, so I would use the dictation thing, so I could just talk to it's
Make sure your enunciation is
yeah, so it
That's a pretty strange thing.
yeah, because it was at first my message was lessons from Iraq. Like,
Well, that'll work.
yeah, like no, not that Iraq, a rock. Let me pause for a moment. So I hope everybody got I don't know if you want to end before we do the song. Or? Yeah, we'll let Jordan wrap it up, and then we'll get the song going. Go, Jordan, wrap it up.
You don't want to see me try rapping. I don't do that very good. But no, it's an excellent thing. And when we were talking about it, when we were doing the fence, even those rocks were getting in the way of us building the fence. And how many of you know if your fence is just a little bit off in one sense, all of a sudden the entire fence is like going that way? And that's not what you want. Well, you want everything straight. So if you don't get those rocks out of your life, if you don't get them out of your driveway, if you don't get them out of your fence post, then it's going to set your whole life off. You can't ignore them. Yeah. And
Doing the fence post though, when you're first doing that, when you're first doing the fence post, if you run into a rock, it helps you get the job done quicker. You get that problem out of the way, and now you've just dug that far without all you had to do is pull this rock out. So getting these problems out of your holes are so much easier sometimes. It really helps out.
And that happened to be my fence post that I was digging. He's digging, and I
no problem at all.
no, and I hit this rock, and I'm like, I can't get around it. Well, it wasn't just a rock; it was a literal block of cement.
This is the side of the foundation.
It was like this big. Yeah, it was this big, and we were trying to get it out. We ended up finding out it had bricks in it and all kinds of stuff. And so at one point he's digging around it, and I'm literally bouncing on the end of the fence post, and it's not moving, losing leverage. I don't have much leverage. Like, we figured out that I didn't have enough leverage to really weigh. I didn't weigh as much as the rock, so I didn't have enough mass. So then we had to come up with other solutions. But once we got that out, my hole was dug. So that was pretty easy. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed his help.
Someone on the end of the lever and someone to keep the rock from falling back in the hole.
Yes, because once you start to get that problem out of your life, you're on the edge. You got to have somebody to help you get it out and cast it in the sea of forgetfulness. You got to get it completely away. Exactly. Once you have that hole, fill it with good. Yeah. The enemy will start to fill it in, find it empty, and he'll fill it in with more rocks. Yeah, you don't need 7 other rocks to come and fill it in. So good lessons. I always like finding lessons in life, like he said. You know, you see things in your everyday life, and Dad was always that way. Dad always liked to use, lessons from a horse breeder, lessons from you can see lessons in the world around you if you're open to it, even in your everyday life. Is there a lesson for me plunging this toilet? Yeah, there is a lot of lessons from plunging toilets. Time to get this out of my life. Yeah, there's a lot of lessons you can find if your eyes are open. Constipated Christians, yeah. No longer, yeah. But it's if your eyes are open, and I encourage you to do that as you're walking through life. Ask Holy Spirit to show you the lessons in everyday life, just the lessons around you. What do you want to teach me in this? I know there's a deeper lesson in this that you want me to apply to my life, and as you do, He'll start showing you that, and it'll make a big difference in your life. So we thank you guys for joining us on Facebook. Trust you got something out of this message. We will see you tomorrow night at what time? Somebody? 5:30. 5:30. We will see you tomorrow night at 5:30. Until then, you have a blessed weekend.
Amen.